director and curator here at Redbud. And for those also who don't know, we are a non-profit organization. So we have these 2 exhibition spaces that we regularly curate with artists that are either emerging or in mid-career. Mostly Houston and Texas. We have done international shows. That's getting a little bit more difficult. But we also offer quarterly workshops. We love to do artist talks. So I'm so excited that Lisa is here. And yeah, we are working more on programming. So I'm so excited to have Lisa here tonight. She is originally from Canton, Mississippi. And I first came across her at Lawndale. Your pieces were chosen for the big show, which is a big deal, and that was last year. So when I saw your works, I immediately fell in love because I love folk art and artists who are self-taught. And so when I contacted Lisa to come by and show the work, I actually asked for you to come by because you live in League City, which is almost Galveston. So you were so nice to offer. I bring the work here. So when she brought the work here, I think at Lawndale you had like pieces like this one here in the corner with your grandmother quilting like it, not that particular one, and but without the collages. So when you brought these works, I immediately thought, wow, because the way you use your acrylic works and integrate these photographs, vintage photographs into it, it just gives it another layer. And dimension. So I was hooked. So initially I only wanted works with the collages, but you asked me to also include a couple that are just in quotes acrylic paints, because you wanted to tell the story and the beginning of it all. So I just love your work because it's intuitive and you have symbolism in your work and it feels spiritual. On our website, I used your own quote about the South. If you haven't read it, read it. It's so poetic. I love it. I also want to mention that your work has been exhibited in the Mississippi Delta Museum, the Kennedy Center, and the American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore. So it's amazing. And also you appeared on television, your work was in magazines, and your work was also used in the film A Journal for Jordan. So please help me in welcoming Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here, and thank you for coming to see me this evening. This is part of my joy. This is what I enjoy doing. Seeing people and talking about my art, and the fact that you took time out of your busy schedules to stop by and to spend time with me brings me so much joy. So thank you for patiently waiting for me. Yes.
A delight.
Wonderful.
So let's dive into it. I would like to start with your background. You grew up in Canton, Mississippi, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I'm originally from Canton, Mississippi, plan on going back this Saturday. And Canton is a small town, population 12,000. Some of you may be from towns a little smaller than that, but I consider it small. Pretty much central Mississippi, not too far from Jackson, Mississippi. We pretty much get excited about whoever visits Canton. We were called, now we're the city of Nissan because Nissan moved there. We used to be the city of lights because they filmed the movie A Time to Kill. But it was pretty much a small town. I consider more like rural town, even though there's a little city, pretty much a southern town. And that's the environment that I grew up in. I mean, we all knew each other. We were a close-knit community. And it was, to me, it was a wonderful place to grow up in because of the people who surrounded me and the values of the individuals who surrounded me. So Canton is beautiful rural life, trees, nature, just a different place, a wonderful place. It's my home. I always say that when I retire, I will move back to the Canton, Madison, Mississippi, because for me, that's home.
Yeah. So, and you were,
I want to go.
Come on with me.
you'll be in
Pine
charge.
trees,
Yeah.
countryside, some dirt, dirt roads. We don't have as many now. Beautiful.
Yeah. So you were influenced by your family and community that surrounded you, but especially by your grandmother,
Yes.
Mrs. I have to look,
Louvenia Torrance.
Torrance.
Yes, my
Yes.
grandmother, she was the essence of a sharecropper during her early years. She had 2 sons, wasn't married originally. She would move from house to house, finding work or working the fields to take care of her sons. But she was a very unselfish person. To me, she taught me the meaning of service, and she taught me how to love. When she died, she approximately had only $1,000 to her name, but she made a home for 10 other individuals, inclusive of her 2 sons. So if you think about bringing 10 people into your home now, you know, at some point in time during their lives, some people were 12, she raised her 2 grandsons from birth. I mean, that's a lot, but she did it with very little. She never brought me one toy in her life. I don't remember a doll, a toy, a ball, anything that she brought. But the time that she spent with me was so valuable. In her eyesight, I was her queen. You know, she used to cook red rose wieners and eggs for me. She used to tell me I'm gonna stretch your stomach. She would sit down and tell me stories about her life. We would quilt together. That's why you'll see a lot of my paintings, they have the quilt in it, or you'll see me quilting. We used to walk to the country store. She would always smile at me. And a lot of times I would go to the cotton fields with her. I didn't realize until the year that she died that she practically raised me for the first 3 years of my life because my mother was working in another town. And so she was my world, she was my heart, she was just a wonderful individual. And I have her accent, people say, but she taught me how to love. She really taught me how to love and how to be a very unselfish individual.
It's a gift.
Yes, yes, and I call it generational wealth.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times we think of materialistic wealth, but a lot of the things that she passed on to me was generational wealth in terms of values, in terms of thoughts, in terms of her beliefs. So I have a tendency to think, when I think about my education, I look at it like a Christmas tree. My education is like ornaments on a Christmas tree, but the true substance of who I am came from my grandmother and from growing up in Canton, Mississippi.
Yeah. Wow. So first of all, when did you start painting? And then when did you realize that you can paint stories and tell stories of the way you grew up, the people you have met and influenced you?
I started painting around 1996, and I saw another artist by the name of Ted Ellis, who was a self-taught artist. And I said, whoa, and I actually sketched out one of his paintings and took it back to him. If I look at something, I can paint it. Like I painted Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, but it's painful. I'm very impatient. But when I paint from my head, it comes out to be very primitive, very folk. I'm not a very realistic painter. And so he looked at what I painted and he said, oh, this is wonderful. So I went back and I started painting more. But I started painting what I identified with and what brought me joy. You know, what I remembered during my childhood. I started putting the story of my life and the people that I grew up with on canvas. So I realized I'm telling the story of people that I grew up with and the story of my life. And that's why now I consider myself You know, if you ask me, what do I consider myself to be? I consider myself to be a storyteller because I tell stories. Stories of people who you won't read about in a magazine, you may not see on TV. Some of them did not have a lot of accolades behind their name, but they were spiritually grounded, they were connected, a lot of them were very brilliant, and they were unified, and they were connected to nature. So I'm a storyteller.
Yeah. And that just thought came in my head when I came to your house to pick up the works, and I saw your studio. I was amazed. I just want to tell everybody who thinks you have to have a big studio or all these fancy materials or whatever, please tell them what your studio looks like and where it is in your house.
I have a little corner room, and it has a washer and dryer. I have an easel about this big, and I paint on top of the washing machine. And that's where I paint.
Inspiration.
Yes, and I don't have to worry about my floors getting messed up. If you look at my washer and my dryer, it's paint all over because I'm a very messy painter. Sometimes I don't even put the tubes back on the tops, okay? So you see paint everywhere. But the little small washing and drying, the room with the washer and the dryer, that's my paint. That's my area that I paint in. And most of the times I paint standing up. 98% of the time I paint just standing up. But I'm a very quick painter too, you know, so I'm not a very extremely slow painter.
Is this why you choose acrylic as your medium?
That's why I
Because
choose.
you're impatient?
Yes, one, acrylic dries quickly. And with oil, I don't know how to paint wet on wet, meaning that when I do an acrylic painting, I will do the complete background first. And then I put everything on top of the background. But if you're an oil painter, I don't know how they do it, you know. Either they're very patient because I don't know how to paint on, I would have to do a background first, and I don't know how to paint on top of a wet background.
Did you take classes?
I have never taken an art class in my life, other than what I did in elementary school. You know, we all took art in elementary school. Yeah. In fact, if you are, most folk art collectors will not purchase art from people who are trained artists, who have had like a lot of art education. And that's not the reason why I haven't had it, I've just never had a class. But no, I've never had an art class in my life.
Didn't need one.
Yes, and never thought about being an artist, you know, never thought about it. It's just something that I felt was a part of my calling. It was a part of what I was meant to do. It was I have a purpose for doing it, and that's why I do it. You know, and to me, I've never worried about in the past whether somebody would like it or not. I just enjoyed doing it. And I don't ever want not to be able to do it. In fact, I have arthritis, okay? My mother has had arthritis. She just passed on February 14th. And I always worry about, ooh, I don't want anything to happen to this hand or this arm, because this is the hand I paint with. Because painting is so precious to me, to be able to do it. I always have to have a canvas in my house, so that if I want to paint, that canvas is there.
Yeah, I always find it amazing that when artists, when they tell me they have to paint, so they have to have the materials there at all times, and when, you know, when it hits you, because what always is interesting to me also, how you, let's talk about how you get your ideas. Do you envision them before you start painting, or do you start with a brush stroke and then the images come to you?
I normally have an idea or concept in my mind that will come to me, and I will paint. And normally, for me, it has to be something I feel. I think of my art as being from my spirit. That's why it would be very hard for Coca-Cola to commission me to paint a Coca-Cola bottle, or somebody to commission me to paint something I don't really feel. Because my art is from my spirit. I have to feel it. And sometimes I think that's why my art connects with the feelings of others. because it's from my spirit, it's from my feelings, and I think it has the ability to connect with the feelings and the spirit of others. So it's an idea, a concept. It may just hit me, and I said, ooh, I think I want to paint that. Now that's basically with my acrylic. If with my mixed media, it used to be when I would be looking around for photography, I would see an image, and then I would say, ooh, I can really build a story around that image. But most of my acrylic, only just an idea, a concept that I decided to come up with based on basically my upbringing in Canton, Mississippi.
Yeah, I would, if you could get into what the purpose of your art is, maybe pick a piece and explain. We can use the one with Harriet Tubman if you like, and tell us how you came about it and why you chose, and how you chose the photographic images.
Okay.
Yes.
First, I want to say that my acrylic and my mixed media, I think, serves different purposes. Most of the time, when people look at my acrylic, like old school days or quilting with grandmama, they say it makes them smile, it makes them laugh, it makes them remember something. And basically, my acrylics portray a scene. You look at a scene. I think with the mixed media, like the Harriet Tubman picture, I'm drawn into expressing the feelings of individuals. You're really connected with the people who are in the painting. And so when I thought about Harriet Tubman and the crest for freedom, I get art and I photographs from different ways. One, Smithsonian open access, and Library of Congress free to use, or anything that's public domain. And that's why a lot of my photographs are from the olden days, you know. One, because that's a time that I really identify with, and second, I'll have to worry less about copyright restrictions, okay? But basically, it's just a time, a story, in place, a time that I want to tell. So the Harriet Tubman is different. It's actually AI generated, the two people who are in it. So I started up with a Harriet Tubman that was standing up, and I said, I want her to run, but I want a lady holding a baby to be with her. So it started off with a lady. At first, Harriet Tubman was holding the baby. So I had to go about 15 different steps actually telling what I wanted and how I wanted it to be done until I could look at it and I could feel what I wanted to feel. If I don't feel a painting, I don't get excited about it. I have to feel. So I do everything from looking at facial expressions to body posture. And color is something else that I use to express feelings. I specifically use it in my mixed media. If you look at the Harriet Tubman, if you look at the lady that's looking at the kite and grandma hands, you see more of a turbulent, more of a brown, gold, reddish sky. And to me, that means deep emotion. But if you look at the walking with grandfather, or if you look at the walking with grandmother, you see more of a subtle pastel type sky. So that's more of a relaxed image, more of a peaceful, relaxed. So a lot of times I will use color to depict emotion in my paintings. And I love doing that. I love using color. And the thing about, people say, what's hardest to do, the acrylic or the mixed media? Sometimes you may think that the mixed media may be easy because you're actually putting a photograph onto a background. But to me, it's where you place the photograph, it's the people in the photograph, it's finding the right photograph. When I used to look at Library of Congress or Smithsonian, I may look at 100 different or 50 different people before I would find the right individual. So that takes a lot of time. But color, composition, placement is very important to me. And the thing about the mixed media, my acrylics make you smile, it reminds you of a scene. Mixed media makes you think deeply. It draws you into deep thought. And I like both. I will always be an acrylic painter. That's what I started with. And the mixed media allows me just to go a little bit step deeper in regards to emotion. And it's very interesting because the reason why I always tell her, and you see I talk a lot, so excuse me.
That's why I answered the next question.
The reason why I always have to show my acrylic, like the two acrylics, is that I don't think people will understand my mixed media unless they see my acrylics. Because when you look at my mixed media, you have the simplicity of my folk art background along with the complexity of an image. But you don't think folk art, because folk art is a very special art form. I love it. Very simple art form, but complex. And then you have the sophistication and the complexity of a photograph, but you don't think about the simplicity of the folk art and the complexity of the photograph. You just see one image. So if I can achieve your visualizing an image without even paying that much attention to the fact that I'm using two totally separate different media, then I've achieved my purpose.
It's emotion.
It's emotion. It's all about emotion. It's about feeling. It's about emotion.
Yeah, and the mixed media definitely evoke that in us. Since you talked about color, I want you to tell us a little bit about the midwife up here, because that sky, of course it's nighttime, but it's because it's so different from the other ones. I want you to tell us a little bit about that one. Why you chose that.
Because that baby was ready.
The sky, yes. Yes. We had a midwife.
Always ready at night.
We had a midwife in my church, and she delivered almost everybody in my country church, in my hometown church. And I used to, hear about my mother was delivered by a midwife, my father was delivered by a midwife. So I always hear about the midwife who have to get up and travel no matter what time. And so I picked the nighttime. You don't really see her face, but you see her with a little bag going to this house, getting ready to do her job. And the sky depicts the richness of what she's getting ready to do, but it also depicts the nighttime scene, that she's going to deliver a baby at nighttime.
Lisa, what is to the left of the house immediately?
That's the quilt.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yes, if you look at
Not close enough. Not close enough.
if you look at quite a few of the paintings, you
Yeah.
see a quilt. And the reason why is that's what I did with my grandmother so much.
But was that a factual thing where the quilts were outside, and was it for them to stabilize?
Was it what now?
Was it for them to stabilize the quilts, or did?
Well, you know what? In where I grew up, we put everything on a clothesline.
Okay.
Oh,
I didn't know that
wash
was.
clothes. Even in the city, when my mother had a washing machine, she had a clothesline. And she would put clothes on the bags because she said, on the line, because she said, it's nothing like putting clothes on a
I
clothesline.
still have the ability to
Yes.
wooden clothespins.
Yes, and the sun shining on those clothes and the smell is nothing. It's totally different from washing them.
Oh, yeah.
And so the quilt is I have 5 of my grandmother's quilts. She made one for all of her grandkids. But I had 5 of them because we were very close. And the quilt is my symbol of my connection to my grandmother. And that's why you will see them. That's my symbolic connection to my grandmother, and that's the quilt. Because you would do what you see in that picture. She had a room with a pot iron stove and one bed in that room, and we would just sit up and quilt. And she taught me how to quilt. And she would talk to me while she was quilting. That was her favorite hobby to do.
So when you start out with a painting, what comes first, the story or the colors?
The story.
The story comes
The
first.
story. And depending on what the story is, I will place the colors around it to bring out what I want to portray. But the story is first in my head, and then the colors are second.
Mhm. Yeah, when Lisa and I talked over a month ago on the phone, and she was telling me about all the community members and the togetherness and helping each other out, I told her, I'm jealous.
Oh, yeah.
I never really had that because my family moved so much, so it's sweet to hear that community and togetherness. So I think, and of course that shows in your work.
Yes. A lot of the lessons that I learned in life were not solely from an academic textbook, they were from life, from my upbringing. For example, my grandmother and I would go to the cotton fields. I picked with her. When I was a little baby, little bitty toddler, I would sit on her sack and she would pull me along, okay? When I was bigger, she would give me a small little sack and I would pick with her. Well, it was this one guy, I don't even remember his name, but for some reason, I don't think he had a lot. He didn't have food. And so we would all be sitting up under the tree eating. And they would never say, what happened to your food? Why you don't have food? Somebody would say, oh, I think I'm full. I'm saying, Joe, you want some of this? My grandma would say, oh, I think I got enough of this. You want to finish eating this for me?
Mm-hmm.
So they allowed him to have his dignity plus share. So those are the type of lessons that I would learn. Like one of the things, if an older person came up in front of me, if I didn't hurry up and say, hello, Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, I would get a stern look because it was polite to speak and to address an older individual and to do it quickly. You know? Yes. Yes. And my father, was very particular about how I would talk to him. I couldn't ask him, what you talking about? Certain things I couldn't say. And he was a deacon for he was a deacon since the age of 26. And he's 88 now. And he would only tell us one time to get up and go to church. I never remember many Sundays not going. If we didn't get up, that's after the first time, he would come in there with a little belt and spank us, And so I remember things like that. We were taught to be respectful. We were taught to be young ladies and how to dress. In church, they taught us how to dress. I came back home I'm not a hat wearer. I wore my first hat to my mother's funeral about 2 weeks ago. I wore one of her hats. But I came back with about 5 of her hats because she used to wear hats and the ladies used to wear hats. So I said, I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna try. But they taught us a lot about life and how to be respectful. Tell you one more story. My grandmother had a house, and on the side of the house was a big old tree. And she had a window. And a lot of the community kids would come and play. We would all play together, boys and girls. So we used to play what you call touch football. We'd throw the football and we would tackle each other. So one day she noticed that the football was over here and the boys and girls was on top of each other laughing. And so when I went in the house, she told me, she said, you can't play ball like the boys anymore. That's all she said. That's all she said. But she was watching. She used to always watch, and she didn't tell me anything twice. I remember one time I had mumps, and I love plums. And she had plum bushes. And she said, don't go out there and eat any plums. And I didn't listen to her. I tried it out there, went to the plum bushes, was eating down, and she was looking at me. I came back in the house, I was crying, I was hurt. She said, I told you not to go in those plum bushes, which is probably different than how I would handle my kids today. I would run out, come back here, what you doing? Don't go out in the plum bushes. Yeah, so it was different.
I have a question. On your outdoor, you have a tree almost in each one of your, what does the tree represent to you?
The tree, strength, solidarity, stability, and I love trees in the country. I was a tomboy when I was younger. I used to climb trees, so I just like trees. And then there stability, fixture, solidarity. Like I said, my grandmama had this big tree that we used to play up under. And it was, I remember that tree. And the thing about being a folk artist, a primitive artist, you can paint, you can do whatever you want to. You know, if you think of somebody like Clementine Hunter, those of you may not know her, she was a famous folk artist. She could make a rooster bigger than a house and it was okay, and the house would be floating in the sky. So I could paint a tree purple, red, orange, whatever I want to do. If you look at some of my, you see that one is bright white and green. So I can do whatever. That's the wonderful thing about not being held to any artistic restrictions in terms of how I paint. This is so much fun.
I know I came in a bit late, so you probably already said this, but where are you from?
Canton, Mississippi, central Mississippi, about 20 miles from Jackson.
When, and this is a weird question, but I know where the Baltimore Museum is. How do Yankees look at your paintings versus people from the South?
You know what?
Interesting question.
Very interesting.
Game.
You know
Well,
what?
that's not a lot.
I think he resembles that remark.
You know what I have found out? That a lot of the people who are not from the South, and who may be from the East Coast or those areas, they still, some of them identify because some of them have matriculated from the South, or they have grandparents that were in the South and they visited the South. So most of the people that I talk to still bear a connection either through their grandparents or through visiting, or they used to live. Others still identify because although they may not be from the South, they probably had, you see that picture grandmother's, grandma has? They probably had a mother that they remember. So it's not even, I think of art as crossing culture, disciplines, geographical boundaries, ethnicities, because there's always something in art, whether it's my art or art done by somebody else, that you may have the ability to relate to. So even though they may not be from the South, they may remember their grandmother or their mother, or they look at the juke joint and they think about fun and how much fun. That was actually on the set of Denzel Washington's movie, but they didn't show it. They showed the yellow flowers. So, but they think about fun, and you can feel fun. And I'm a neuroscientist by training. It's called cognitive embodiment. Cognitive embodiment. And cognitive embodiment means that you can look at a painting and almost feel as if you're there inside of that painting. So did that answer your question?
I have a question. Okay, two questions. So first, is that known as the Trump Kennedy Center now?
Yes, it was. It was only the Kennedy Center.
I had to put that out.
Oh, it's not. It's the Kennedy.
It's on the wall.
It was only the Kennedy Center when I went there. And I was part of a play put on by 5 artists, 5 women, talking about the role of mothers and grandmothers in our lives. We had an opera singer, I was the artist, a poet who I did the cover of her book, Remika Bingham Fisher. We had a producer, and we also had a classical pianist. So we all talked about grandmother's love and grandmother's hands using our different medium. I was also interviewed by the Smithsonian in February of 2024. Made it to the 2nd level, which means I had to ship my art to Washington, D.C. to the gallery that sponsored me, and they talked to me. He told me not to fly out but through video. And that has gotten canned because of, things have changed. So I'm hoping that it'll come back up again, because that's one of my dreams. The American Visionary Museum was almost equal, because the American Visionary Museum is also a congressional museum, and it's one of the premier folk art museums.
Is that the one in Baltimore?
That's the one in Baltimore. It's a wonderful museum. And so I have 2 pieces in their permanent collection, and I was part of a year-long show with 4 pieces.
Well, congratulations. But secondly, where do you get your images, the cutouts?
My images, the bulk of them that you will see, specifically on paintings before 225, Library of Congress, Smithsonian Open Access, and public domain sites that I have to be careful about and read the copyright restrictions.
And then you cut the image
I
out.
cut the image out.
You print it and then you cut it.
I print it and I cut it, and I have to print the right size. And I have to print, you know, I like black and white. I always like black and white because of the contrast it gives with my photos. And recently, and a lot of people have different feelings, and this may be a controversial issue for some people, but I'm beginning to feel differently. Now I've started using AI to create the image I want. And let me tell you what's different about it. With these, like that one came from either Smithsonian or Library of Congress, okay? It's called A Love Song for You, the man that's
The last
playing
one.
the last one. Somebody took that photograph, okay? But it's had no longer any copyright restrictions on it. When I do like Running to Freedom, or if I do this one, Walking with my grandfather, I tell it completely what I want. The type of facial expressions, the color of the skin, the year that, the clothing, how I want them to be dressed. So nobody has created that painting, that nobody has created that photograph image but me, okay? No photographer took those two people walking together. So sometimes I wonder what's more creative, me generating or me finding a photograph. Now, I'm not one who has crossed the barrier where I want to do a lot of, you know, AI, meaning that I still believe, me as an artist, this is my belief, that the majority of my painting has to be, you have to see my own artistic expression in it.
You can literally take the picture that you got from, you know, the Congress or whatever, send it to AI,
And it will,
but then you tell them your parameters.
yes.
And then you continue to go back and forth with AI. 'Cause
Yes, you can do that.
I'm just learning that.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can do that.
And
You
so
can do that.
you're actually being the creative person.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, because this here, I just said I want an old man, and I want an old man in the 1960s, and I want an African American old man. And then I said I want a young boy, but I want that young boy to be dressed in a suit. I said I want the old man to hold the cane. So when I first got them, they were both standing up, and I went through different series of pictures of old men. I picked that one because he reminded me of my father. And then I said I want them to be walking. And then I said I want them to have this type of smile on their face. So you have to go through a series of steps to get to what you want to get to feel what I want to feel from those two individuals.
So you type that in and then
Oh,
hit
yeah.
I
the
type it
image
in,
and
yes.
it comes back with,
Yes.
so it keeps the.
That will be another course.
I still see that people value and whether or not you selected an image and incorporated it, or you manipulated it, it's still, there's the quality of the composition and how you created the whole piece. And yeah.
You have to know what to do with it.
Yeah,
And knowing what to do for it comes from the intellect and the heart both. You have to put both together. You have to know. And like I say, I could have taken that man and that son and put them farther back. Okay? I could have put them back closer to the house. But that was not my focal point. It didn't work.
And that's
You have to
exactly
know
what- yeah.
exactly, like the grandma hands. I had to figure out where I wanted to put them in that picture to make it work.
Exactly.
So placement is almost as important as color to me.
All composition.
You have to know it's all
Yeah.
composition. And some people like my acrylic best. Some people like, a lot of people like, for some reason, my mixed media a lot. You know, I think it's the emotion that they get from it.
But your acrylics were the beginning focal point.
Yes.
And so you just expanded beyond that.
Yes.
But you always go back to what you started.
I do
You like
both.
the- yeah.
I do both. I just painted an acrylic painting not too long ago. I do both. My primary medium is acrylic, but I do both now. I do both. Both of them are fun for me to do.
So is it less of a trial and error now with the photographs that you were just describing, how you create them and then how you place them? Because you have to, well, you have to think about so many things, you know, how big is my painting going to be? Do the figures look good in relation to the houses in the background and all of that.
Mhm.
So, but you have been doing that for a while now. Does it take you less time? Is it less trial and error now?
Not with the photographs,
No,
because
okay.
the challenge in each one, if I saw a photograph today that I liked, or if I came up with something, like I have things I'm waiting, like I have a grandmother and a little girl in the garden, the challenge is still gonna be making that painting come alive.
Mhm.
You know, that's gonna be my challenge, is making it come alive. And making it come alive is still gonna entail me sitting back and feeling and thinking. That's the challenge. What's easier for me now? When I first started painting, I didn't blend colors. Like, you see how you have different shades, like you may have yellow and the green, or you may have white and that little pathway with the running the freedom, or you have like yellow here in the grass. I never blend anything. If you found a painting of mine in 1996, it would have just been green grass, all the same color. But one of the things I love to master now is blending colors together. Just putting different colors. You see how in that lady reflections, see how the dark brown is in the lighter brown with the kite? You see that? You see how I place a dark brown with a lighter brown, and then you have a tint of green picking up the tree, the color of the green in the tree. And you may have a slight image of yellow that picks up the yellow in the sky. That's what I mean by blending and accenting. And that it has gotten easy for me to do.
Is it dimension?
Yes, but making the person come alive is that challenge. It's that challenge. And I do it from the heart though.
I have a selfish question.
A selfish.
On the Tubman piece, I didn't know that was Harriet Tubman. Why, A, did you choose her image, and are you starting to use more recognizable people in your painting?
No, I was struck. I have one that I showed the Smithsonian to use. That's not here, okay? A picture of Harriet Tubman with people behind her. I was struck by her story. The fact that she was guided a lot by her faith, and I didn't know that, to lead people. And second, she ruled by both her spiritual state of being and by the gun. She didn't play, okay? If you read about her. And so that's what struck me about her. Sometimes I will do a person that's recognizable, but they have to really strike me. They have to really hit me or resonate with me. But I don't do many people that's just recognizable.
Well, knowing who that is makes that more meaningful for me.
I know that frames are also important. Tell us about how you choose the frames and.
I'm a frame person. I don't know if many of y'all know Grandma Moses, who was a primitive folk artist. She was a frame person, okay? To me, a frame it's like a little coating, a little dress on the painting. So I try to choose frames that I think will go with the color of my painting or go with the style of the painting. So I'm a frame person. I pick something that I think will go with the style of the painting. Like, you may find something if it's very rustic, like this young lady here called I Dream. I kind of kept it simple. This one I kept it simple because I didn't want anything to outdo. This one I went by the colors in the painting. That one there, I just love that white frame on that one because to me it just highlights everything. It's elegant. And the man is elegant. And the frame is a little more elegant. It's not as rustic. So I love framing. And I do my own. This is fun.
You're fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, great storyteller.
I think it's kind of nice on your blending, you're saying, like on the one right behind you, that bright yellow right behind the porch steps. For some reason, it makes an impact, and then the next one behind Tanya,
Yes.
the light green right behind the family kind of highlights it in a way that doesn't blurt it out to you.
And you know what's so strange? A lot of times I will do the highlights before I put anything on.
Well, I wondered that.
Because I have an idea of where I'm gonna place stuff in my head a lot of times. And it's all about feeling. I will just do the entire background, highlight where I think. It's almost like even with the background, I have to start feeling the background. I have to make my background come alive.
Do you have the images next to you when you're doing your background?
So I would have them laying down on the washing machine, but I don't do that. but it's like I can't have a boring background anymore. I have to feel even my background. And I think the thing that I like grandma hands here, holding grandma hands, I think that's one of the backgrounds I also like the best because the colors are so blended. You have a mixture of colors in there, and it's just all there. And then the little yellow flowers. Look, I'm just excited about that. The little yellow flowers just all go together. And if you look at the Walking with Grandmother, how you have the white gravestones, those are gravestones over there by the green trees, and the white church, and you see how you have the white in the sky. And for some reason, I did that sky before I put anything in that picture. So but I had a picture of what I was gonna do in my head.
That kind of goes into my question. Do you have the painting completely figured out before you do it? Or do you have mainly just a structure and let it evolve as you create?
Most of the time I have it in my head. I have an image. I may add, like sometimes I'll even go back after I paint something and add a little bit. Or I may modify, create, enhance. But most of the time, I have a picture in my head of what I want to create. Something like this, I'm trying to see, yeah, I pretty much knew how many houses I wanted, but I would go and modify, probably add a little bit more. But I have an idea most of the time. I have it in my head. It'll come up in my head.
That's an interesting question. Do you keep a sketchbook at all, and do those kinds of things, like if you do, flow into your work?
I've never sketched.
No.
And some people will take a pencil and sketch out what they want. I don't. I keep a little binder, a little plastic thing full of photographs that I still have to make pictures of, but I don't sketch. I don't keep a sketchbook. I don't even make a notation of what it is I want to paint. It comes up in my head and I say, ooh, I can't wait to get home and do that. And I'll do it. I see images that I keep with the hope that, hey, I'm gonna make something out of that, when I have time.
In the midwife, I'm drawn to those flowers. Is that flowers?
Which one? But yeah, the
The
bushes.
small little circle? Yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about, the little circle in the top?
No, not the moon, but.
Oh, yeah, they're little flowers. They're little, yeah.
The flowers.
Yeah, those are flowers.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen in the country where you have rocks? They put the little rocks around and then the flowers are inside. So that's what that is, little rocks and flowers. But the flowers pick up the moon. So there's a connection. And that's how I use color. So I'm hoping if I continue to perfect it, that one day I will be known for my use of my storytelling and my use of color. Because I think that's where I see me growing as an artist, is in my use of color.
Not a question, just me thinking when you were talking about your trees earlier, I see seasons with your green tree, orange tree.
Okay.
The long sleeves on this child with the very autumn, true autumn. I see
You
seasons.
see seasons, okay, yes, yeah.
Now you're getting wrong.
Thank you. And sometimes I play with simplicity. A simple painting can also be impactful. Do I have any simple paintings? The midwife is not that complex. That one is definitely simple. The Running to Freedom is simple. You don't see even a moon. I started to put a moon in that sky, but I figured it didn't need one because I have a streak going across that to me captured the moon. And then the white picked up the essence of what would have been moonlight. So, and this one is called, this one here, the lady placement was very important there.
And she's so elegant.
Yes.
And her garments.
Yes, I think I
wonderful.
named it beauty, strength, struggle.
Yeah.
It shows, if you look at her face though, her face captivated me. That was what the Kennedy Center used for our ad, for our play.
I mean, that,
Her face shows you strength, elegance, beauty, and struggle, but you see the struggle if you look closely.
and what I see is again that rural, the home behind,
Mhm.
that represents that she has gained this, you know, elegance,
Yes.
this presence.
Yes, and even the type of house I put behind is very important. You have to pick the right house, so everything has to flow together.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and, Michael?
I have a comment, and it's something I've noticed in some of your paintings, is you talked a lot about feeling a connection with like a certain time in history, and like you're using these very historical photographs alongside just acrylic painting. But in these very warm colored background skies, you have like these very warm kind of nostalgic colors. It almost feels kind of like a sense of longing in the paintings and in the collages. I don't know, that's something I kind of get when I look at throughout your images. You have these very warm skies. And I think warm colors, like you talk about wanting to use these gray or using black and white photographs, all of them kind of have like a creamy look to them, like those old, like, what are those, like tintypes or those old photographs?
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
tintypes, yeah.
Okay.
So I think that is something maybe to think about too, is like you talk about your use of color and how that's important to you. I think warm colors work very well in your paintings.
To create a sense of longing
A sense of
belonging
longing.
and connection.
Yeah.
Thank you. I got seasons, I got creative.
Developing.
I'm gonna be going back getting on top of the washing machine, trying to do seasons and belonging. Thank you. Very
I want to know if
good.
that machine is running while you're, you know,
It
It look like this.
And my husband will tell you, my son will come down, are you finished? Are you finished? Because I said, let's put the clothes down.
It's just, I mean, you know, I could give you a little.
Yes. Yeah, but this is my world, and it's a very important part of my world, and this is what I really, really enjoy doing. If I could do it full time, I probably would, but this is what I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, so, and that brings me to one of my last questions. How would you like to be remembered as a painter?
I would like to be remembered as a storyteller who reminded people of times that were simple, but complex and beautiful, and who also reminded people of the importance of values and how important values are to succeeding in life. If you think a lot of the people today who we admire, who made it, their progression, their development was based on fundamental values. Being non-selfish, caring, working hard, spirituality for some, you know, being connected, and that those values are so important to being grounded, to having self-awareness, and to achieving in life. And that's the story I want my art to tell. And that you know, although life for some was probably simple in terms of technology, we didn't have iPhone or telephone, you know, if we had a phone, we wanted to talk, we stopped at the payphone and put a quarter in. The kids did not have what you call these games or stuff. What you call those games? PlayStations and Xboxes. We played with each other. The times were simple, but what people have to also realize, the complexity was people knew how to survive and to make it with what they had. And part of that making it was depending upon each other. And that's something that we may have a tendency to lose today. Where I came from, nobody locked doors. Nobody was starved, pretty much, because people would say, you go to so-and-so, even a preacher would go from house to house. We didn't have a lot of need for a lot of the older people stayed with their daughters or their sons. If somebody couldn't take care of their child, the auntie or a neighbor got them. So people, they knew how to make it. And it was part being unified, appreciating each other, loving each other. And that's something that I think we need to retain today and tell our young kids about, that simplistic time that people value each other.
One more, what you're talking about is, when I was growing up, we just lived in a small house. All the neighborhood kids played with each other. Again, we didn't have any video games or anything. We played with Lincoln Logs and stuff like that. But I didn't know that wasn't the richest life. I didn't know there was anything beyond that. It didn't matter to me. I was a happy child. So, you know, when I got into high school, the high school was rich kids and medium kids and poor kids, and I was in the medium group, and I saw where the rich kids lived. I was like shocked. I didn't know any different, any better, and I was totally happy with what I had.
My father told me the same thing. He said when they wanted fruit, they go pick blueberries, they go fishing, they had cow meat and whatever. In their own little world, he didn't know he was poor. He didn't realize how poor they were because they were in their own little society.
Actually, what you are telling us, your family, your community lived in a blue zone. Have you heard of the blue zone?
No, you can tell me the blue zone.
I think we have 7 blue zones in the world, and it has different components. It's the food people are eating, the community, and having rituals. We have one here in California, actually. I can't remember where. One is in Costa Rica, Italy, and people take their time. It's a lot about community and everything, the socializing, because your grandmother turned, how old was she?
She was 98 in 2015,
Yeah.
98, and she said she was hoping to live to 100.
Yeah, and I think that's why. She ate good food, it wasn't processed.
Yes,
She was with people. Yeah.
True. When I was younger, and I don't know if it's because I was younger, but you didn't hear, when somebody died, they either they were up in age, or they had an accident. I didn't hear about as what we see now today. So I think a lot of it is the foods, a lot of it is the process.
Oh, and exercise.
Yes,
They exercise. They just did, you know.
They were physical.
Yes, they were stronger. I think my mother was much stronger than I could ever be. They got outside and they worked, you know. Now we sit up at the computers, the little kids all day long, and they don't get out and run and play cowboy and Indian and chase each other and swing.
Yeah.
They don't do that.
Chase the mosquito trucks.
Yeah.
on the road.
Yes.
And then you know, okay, well, what did that do to the brain? You know, you got this fog of chemicals.
Yes, my grandmother used to have a little tin. She used to have a little tin pail. Look, it's like a big old thing on the side of the house. She used to catch rainwater, and we would bathe, we would drink it.
Oh, yeah.
We drinking, but it was okay. It was okay. Yes, and another thing I think about, I think the people, the stories I tell, because I'm telling stories of people that I grew up with, I think they would be proud. They represent the people. They would be proud, I think, of the story that I'm telling about them. So that makes me happy too. So I'm hoping I can do this forever. I hope
You
so.
can.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. I had so much fun.